Hello and welcome to Values and Vibes. Today we're gonna talk about respect with my two favorite guests, Tia Lancaster, CEO and founder of Revalue 180, and Louisa Bulow, Business Psychologist. We're gonna talk about respect and why is it so important in relationships. Stay with us and find out more. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Values and Vibes. Today we're going to talk with Tia Lancaster and Louisa Bulow. Of course, values by value, but today we're going to talk about respect. Louisa, can you tell us from the model of Revalue 180, what is respect as a value?
So yeah, sure. Respect in our model is to act in a deferent manner with high regard for oneself, a situation, and/or others.
Wow.
Well, respect is a super interesting one for me. And like it's because I think it's something that as we grow and as going especially from adolescence into early adulthood or even early those years, those tween years when you're young and really kind of establishing with the young people of this world what respect means. I just have an interesting story to give you a little bit about respect. So Victoria, my oldest, one of her boyfriends, very talented, like an ex-boyfriend, now who she's marrying, very artistic, could draw, could play the piano, was just this like basically this artistic creative soul, was also highly intelligent, very good in math, very good in computer science and whatnot. And so after he graduated from university, he was really struggling to kind of get a job. He was getting final interviews at some of the biggest companies like Google's of the world and all of those places. And he got called, he made it to the final round every single time. And I was just building the model at that point. So, and he definitely assisted and helped out in the maths and was very helpful to be able to bounce some things off of him on that side. But we went through the process and it was very early on. And what we learned is that the value of respect was being blocked in his life. Okay. And we did the reevaluate process solely with the idea of why is there a reason that maybe you make it to all these final rounds of interviews, but then you're not securing it. You're not securing the deal. What's the problem? So he removed respect very early. And I remember then we had an interview. The process was a little bit different then. I did it more kind of, it wasn't as formal. And we did it kind of an interview right away. And I didn't ask about respect. It wasn't one of his prioritized values. It was one of his lost forgotten, but we weren't talking about it in this sense at that point. And he just kept mentioning about how he didn't like any respect wasn't important to him. People had to earn his respect and then they could, and they earn his, he earns theirs and whatnot. But respect, he just really talked about it like upwards and downs, how it just wasn't a value he was interested in. It's like, okay. So anyways, when we do the whole process, we're writing up this report and I realized that he's chosen the Maverick blocker. And the Maverick blocker is sometimes, to kind of push forward with decisions, not worrying about the consequences and likely can have some not great fallout in the end when you're a Maverick. Block respect. So he's very artsy, but also very mathy. So I came back to him and I said, okay, listen, I said, you talked about respect a lot, and it's interesting because it's one of your lost or forgotten values. It's blocked by this Maverick blocker. I said, maybe with these next round of final interviews, maybe before you go, because he told me that the interviews were easy. He didn't really prepare the night before. He got flown in. He went to the bar and had drinks, got up and went to the interview. So anyways, I said, well, maybe next time. I said, maybe kind of look at the people that are interviewing you, look them up on LinkedIn, see what they look like. I don't know, maybe fix your hair in a way in which that might just, kind of like go in there with play the part a little, play the role. I said, maybe make some flashcards and instead of spending the night before just kind of chilling out in this free hotel room, having drinks, really plan for this interview. Guess what? I said, and look for something that caters to like kind of your creativity. Next round of interviews, he got like 3 job offers. It's just crazy. So that's why I really think just showing a little bit of respect. Respect is respect for yourself, respect for the process. I understand that you have to earn people's respect and they have to earn yours. That is all great, but that's just a real world example of somebody who said respect wasn't important to him. And this is how it played out in a real life example.
Do you have anything to add, Louisa, about respect?
I would say that for me, there's almost like there's sides to respect. I think there's like a respect pyramid model or something that I've heard of before. And I think the bottom of it is just kind of you're avoiding it. But then the next level up is with your teachers, for example, there's like a natural respect that you just happen to have. And then it becomes a bit more effortful, I would say, at the top of that pyramid. I think for me, respect is very much like almost like a deep admiration for someone. If I respect someone, it's because I admire them in one way or another, or their qualities. And maybe that's kind of like Tia's example, perhaps, if from my opinion of it and my definition of it, maybe he needed to show that individual that actually, you know, I'm here for an interview because I admire you somewhat, and I admire what you guys do as a company.
And I respect what you're doing there.
And I actually want to be a part of that journey. So, for example, I've always had, from the moment I met Tia, a lot of respect for Tia, because I admire who you are as a person. And it goes with a lot of other people in my life that I look at for wisdom, is because I think there is an aspect of it which is about someone's, yes, their abilities, their skills, their expertise, but also almost more than that. There's like the X factor, their worth, or something that you resonate with in them that you admire.
And that's so, thank you. And I feel the same with you. And you have a lot of wisdom for your young years. New birthday, Louisa just turned 28. Woohoo, shout out. But anyway,
yes.
That's an interesting thing. And the point that you made with admiring somebody, right? And then holding that respect. And it brings me back to our last value we discussed, which is authenticity. So I guess is maybe for this particular individual that I was counseling or chatting with or coaching about this value of respect, is that maybe he thought he was being his authentic self. And we talked about it. Is it inauthentic to kind of play by the rules of the particular circumstance? I don't think so. I think that different situations and circumstances call for different levels of respect. And I think it's just once again, the rules of engagement in society. And I think that sometimes maybe you don't want to dress a certain way for a particular interview, or talk about certain topics. And if it is really that inauthentic, then you shouldn't be interviewing for the job. But if it's something that you're interested in, then that's where you're going to have to do a little bit of that, you know, kind of sales puffing and like getting there and playing that respect game.
I think as well, in my head, you know, I thought maybe think of that. There's easy respect and then there's hard respect. And easy respect is you are my elder and naturally society taught me to respect you. And that's just something ingrained in my head. So yeah, if you say jump, I'll jump. There's that kind of respect. And then there's a harder respect, which is actually accepting someone on an equal basis and really giving them the same almost attention or consideration, I guess, as what you're getting. And I think that can be hard for people to do. So that's why, so Tia mentioned the Maverick blocker that blocks it, which is all about, I guess, being a little bit impulsive and quick with your decisions because you kind of have this direction and this idea in your mind and bam, I'm just going to go for it. So Maverick can be really beneficial in an entrepreneurial way, but it can be counterproductive because what are other people seeing in that?
Right.
So
Or how am I alienating?
Who am I alienating within that?
Yeah. And I think that respect is, I think when you feel disrespected by someone, it's an awful feeling. It's like, wow, like even just someone who's like disrespectful driving, you know what I mean? Just like in Miami, you see all the time, they whip across 12 lanes and you're like, that's so disrespectful. You know what I mean? Because we all have to like be better drivers because you're driving recklessly. So yeah, there's a lot of give and take, I think, with respect.
They're not giving you that same consideration as you're giving them. And I guess that driving, literally, if I'm staying in my lane, you stay in yours. It's quite a good metaphor for my hard respect version in a way.
Or even when I think about respect too, since you are English and Swedish, I mean, you think about there's that respect of the monarchy. You know what I mean? There's like most English, I'm not saying they all love the monarchy. I think most all love the Queen because she was an amazing figure. But I think there's an inherent respect for the institution, the monarchy among many English people. But you could speak to that, Louisa.
Yeah, I think there naturally is. And if you think our history in Europe and therefore in the UK and in England, me being an English person compared to in the US, and it only goes to watch like a property show where they say this antique building is 100 years old, and you think, right, the cottage my mum lives in is from the 1600s, and that was where it was the priest's house. It was called you know, it's a cottage which is named after the church which is next door, and it's been there that long. Things like this, we have a lot of history, and it makes me proud for that. And I think we're brought up in a way in the UK maybe where that maybe is a little bit more in your face, but respect is in regulation. And our regulation zone is all about adhering to customs and beliefs and the norms that are set around you. There's one side which is about routine, structure, order, discipline, but the other side is social frameworks. And that's definitely where something like the royal family would
Definitely.
fit.
And then that's where that interesting word of deference comes in. Deference is I love that word. I mean, if you're going to give someone deference in a court of law, when I was a lawyer, you know, if the judge is speaking, you're deferent, you know what I mean? You're giving that the court, the respect deserves the judge, the respect, same way in which, you know, maybe the government leaders or the monarchy or just the history of it, the great respect you have for, you're right, for the thousands of years that have come before you, you know, I agree.
And I'm not proud of a lot of the history that comes within that. I'm not proud of it, you know, things that are that we have done as a country, and even as Europeans across the globe. But actually, some of the bits I am proud of, that's where you get that respect and that desire to understand it in a way.
So do you see any relation with that, with good manners and people who are behaving really bad and they have like that a role, like, you need to earn my respect?
I think that's could come along with a little bit of maybe money and power that sits in personal empowerment, which is right next to regulation. I think that sometimes people automatically believe that if they have more money or power, they should be respected, but they don't do respect. They don't give that respect in return. And I think that's frankly sad, because I think if anything, if you have money and power, I think that it's even more important for you to walk your talk and to show respect for every individual that you encounter, because that's what make people think, that's what makes you prosperous. You know what I mean? That's what makes you prosperous as a human.
Yeah, but they think like when I show respect to somebody who is lower than me,
Yeah.
I'm bigger than them. I'm more important than them. Why would I show to them respect?
Yeah, well,
And
that's just terrible, I think.
yeah, no, honestly, and I'm telling you, when I notice a lot, especially when I'm like walking, you know, like when I'm in grocery shop or whatever, you know, like whenever you show respect to anybody, lower, you know, like whoever you want to call it, just surrounding people, you know, like neighbor, whatever, you're feeling immediately great. You know, like there is an elder person, she's coming to elevator. Can you just hold the door? Can you just
Right.
ask her kindly, are you going up? Are you going down? How is your day? You know, like, can I help you with the groceries? You know, like something that's also like a good manner, but also showing respect for somebody who is older. You know, like why that is a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it does. I mean, I think manners and decorum go hand in hand with respect in a lot of ways, because that's, once again, respecting, it's not just respecting the person, but it's respecting the circumstances, the situation. I mean, how you walk into a cathedral or a synagogue or a mosque, that's all respect. It's reverence, you know, it's that they're all different contexts of respect, but it's really in every aspect of living. It's like how you, like Louisa said, when you respect your teacher when you're young, when you respect the priest or the rabbi, or, you know, whomever. It's just, it's at every different level of kind of our society in general.
Do you have
I think people who aren't showing it that way, who feel like they don't owe people beneath what they deem beneath them, is disrespect, you know, which
yes,
is,
yes, exactly.
yeah, it's disrespectful. And I think that's sad, unfortunately.
I think that the learned version of respect, and I can only speak from kind of the culture I grew up in, is the good manners, thank you, and someone gives you something, please may I have this. Being, again, someone who is English in Europe and how I grew up, those are manners that me and all my friends just kind of grew up with. That's what our parents gave us. I do think probably culturally how it manifests is slightly differently. So in Sweden, you can go up to a counter and you just say, cup of coffee and a bun, thanks. Whereas in the UK, we almost like too far the other way. Oh, please may I have a coffee with a bun? Thank you, that'd be great. Thank you so much. And it's a bit like we could take it too far, but it definitely, my point being, manifest, I would say, a little bit differently in how the manners come out.
I agree. I think we see that, especially because the United States is such a big country. You see that even across our country, like the Midwesterners tend to be very respectful and please and thank you and yes, can I help you? But you go, I remember I renting a car in Boston one time and I'm in like the Hertz rental car line and there's like 2 people in the Hertz rental car line, right? And I'm from Rhode Island, so I walk and I talk and I drink coffee, and so they can be kind of rough sounding. And I'm standing in the line in a car rental place, Hertz, and the guy goes, "What do you want?" I go, "A car," because that's how they say it. I mean, but I mean, in some ways that wasn't disrespectful for people living in Boston. That just their vernacular, how they speak with each other. But a Midwesterner was there, and it's like, oh my God.
But that's a good point. It's how on the other side you perceive it. So that's my whole point of, you think of it accepting someone on an equal basis and with equal consideration, and you do expect the same back. But then when you take a level of how that respect manifests for that person, it's differently. Like I remember going to Sweden with Rich and saying, oh, you know, if you start bumping people in the street, you know, you busy street, you're walking, you're knocking shoulders with someone. In the UK, it's never ending. Oh yeah, sorry, whatever. In Sweden, you just walk on. It's natural. You're like, they think, okay, well, obviously it's a busy, crowded street. You bumped into someone, carry on. You have to apologize here. And I just remember being little, my little cousin who's Swedish, who grew up in Sweden, would always laugh at me. She's like, you apologize a lot. I'm like, yeah, that's how I grew up. But if I don't, you know, for Swedish people, it's different. So there is a bit of, it's hard to know like what you expect back. And it goes back, I think, to the first episode where I've talked about my dad being a CBT therapist, and he always says, you can't should people. You know, you can't say they should do this. Because you're not them and you're not in control of their lives. So
I mean, if you'd like them to do that, I love that. You can't, that's a great expression. I have to tell him that. I love that. I've used it since you first mentioned it. No, it's true. I mean, so I guess it's like anything else. When I talked about that linguist a couple episodes ago and how he was arguing with me that this model would never work in Japan because they value different things, but that's precisely, it can work anywhere because they might have a different cultural interpretation of respect, but respect is going to be a certain way in every culture. And like Louisa said, bumping into people across Sweden on busy streets, it's not disrespectful. You don't have to apologize or fall over yourself for doing it. But
and also I was reading about values and I found out that core value of Japan is respect.
Yeah, they do all that bowing, right? And all of that, you know, which is amazing. I mean, and it makes, I think people love to visit that. Yeah.
Everybody have a good feeling, like they're respectful. And there is an article, they were like telling about speaking about like when you go to Japan, you immediately become respectful because you're surrounded with so many, you know, like, respectful people.
But have you seen the videos of in Japan people queuing up for the metro or the tube to get to work, and they queue up? In the UK, if anyone listening has been on the Northern Line in the morning, you know that it's a fight. It's a fight to get on that train.
And I would sometimes be scared when I'd be taking the tube into school because I'm like, am I going to die today? When they're full and people are just pushing in.
So you do, and you wedge yourself in and underneath someone, and a lot of trains will pass, whatever. But it isn't. We don't stand in a long line and queue. It's not. There is respect. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, it's not on the level of the videos I've seen, for example, in Japan.
Yeah, but that's amazing. I mean, and think about even in if we could go to another country, we'll go to Italy. People love to go to Italy, right? Because it's every person you pass, it's buongiorno, and you know what I mean? Everyone says good morning, everyone says good afternoon, good night. It's this level of respecting, of just saying, you know, hello, how are you today? You know what I mean? Which is it
like
creates
a social meter. You need to say everybody, you need to be kind, Ellie, to everybody. So your brain is gonna think that everything is safe around you.
Well, you know what? That's so true though, because I mean, the whole idea of happiness and what we're trying to create with Value 180 is really built in the idea of happiness is contagious, as is depression, sadness, anger. So that's why you want to create workplaces and families and environments where people are respecting one another and are feeling, you come in feeling happy, saying hello, goodbye, you know, doing those nice things. Because guess what? If you started having a bad day, but everyone around you is being respectful and, you know, being considerate of you and your day, it'll make it'll transfer into you and you'll start to feel better.
Of
I
course.
do think we've talked a lot about respect between people, but then there's respect for yourself, right? Which
Yeah.
is how it takes on many forms. So I think I was saying that it's about, well, if not, I'm saying this outwardly is for me very positive feelings towards someone or admiring someone, but actually you hold the mirror up to yourself. That's what respect can do as well. So I think there's an aspect of it which is about having enough respect for my own integrity and who I am and the authenticity you kind of mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that you learn growing up, or that you try to imbue upon your, the young people and your children, is that feeling of self-respect. Because if someone is mistreating you, if you're in a bad relationship, or you have friends that are bullying you or whatnot, you need to have that self-respect to be able to walk away. And that takes a lot of courage. One of those values that we talk about that's really kind of serves as the impetus for a lot of value activation in people's lives. But I think that those are some of the hardest lessons to learn, is when we've been wronged or hurt, and we have to garner that courage and that self-respect to walk away, really walk away. So I think that that's a great point, Louisa. I think self-respect is of utmost importance.
Is self-respect in relation with dignity, or is that something that you learned, that somebody is telling you, your parents like pushing you, telling you like, this is, or it's just showing a boundaries? Okay, this is my boundary. I'm not gonna go across this. This is it. I'm done.
I think of both. I mean, I think it is a lot of boundary issues. I think however, I think it comes down to the other values in your life and the ideals and the virtues that have surrounded your upbringing and who you are and what you've been taught to expect of other people. And, and we expect to be treated the way we want to be treated. You know what I mean? I mean, we want to treat other people the way we want to be treated. It's that give and take. So I think a lot has to do with boundaries and kind of your own upbringing and what you've been taught at home.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's, times where definitely with my mom, we've had those conversations where it's trying to imbue some respect for me as a young woman in the world, where she says, you've got to make sure you look out for yourself as well, because no one else will. Idea anyway. So I feel respect is definitely a prioritized value for me. And it's probably because I definitely have had that a lot in my upbringing, probably culturally as well, being from the UK. Like I said, going to school here, it's something that just happened, that you learn. I don't know, I want to articulate something, but I don't really know how. I was kind of, here we go. I was talking about, see what this ends up. Where I was saying that you respect to, like, you can give that respect to somebody and you're expecting that same consideration back. In my mind, I'm always thinking that self-respect is the reverse. So I'm getting something from someone and I have to consider how that's impacting me too, and whether I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah, that's just it's turning it inside out. I mean, you might be showing respect for someone, but if their behavior towards you is not at a level that is what
you've got to know your boundary.
So I think that was a great point, Milena, to think of it as a set of boundaries, which makes sense because respect does sit in regulation, which is all about guardrails and boundaries.
Yeah, I was having a problem because I think I'm a people pleaser. So I'm always like, oh, it's okay. Like if I make like I don't know, like some toy or something, it's like, oh, it's just fine. I'm going to buy another one. Oh, somebody's late. Oh, it's fine. I'm going to wait. So I was never showing respect. So now when I'm showing respect, self-respect towards me, I always like, look at this bitch, like how she's behaving.
Yeah.
Change. She's such a bad, and that's like first time that I have a boundaries. You didn't show up 15 minutes that we arranged. Sorry, I have plans. I need to go. I have a baby.
It's true. And that's something people do have to, like, I remember my mom saying something like that when you're young, when those, if you go through those phases in your life where you're always running late. And it's like, why are you not valuing that person's time? What you're just respecting their time. You're not, it might not be, you're not doing it with like intention to hurt their feelings or be late, but just because you decide you're going to empty out the dishwasher and, you decided you need to wash your hair because it's dirty. at the last minute, that's not fair. That's disrespectful.
But that's where the maverick blocker comes back in, because it was like, oh, well, I just had to do this and thought about that and did that myself. And that's the kind of risky, let's just go for it. That
Yeah, I
maverick
don't really
does.
care. Let the chips fall as they may.
Exactly. And I have respect as a prioritized value. I think I said it already, but I feel like this is one that, for me, the biggest sign of disrespect to me is thoughtlessness. So actually, if you come up to me and punch me in the face, I'm like, oh, okay, I know where we stand. If someone does something where they haven't considered me, I get more offended by that, because I always try and consider other people's feelings. And again, I think you should have done that to me when I shouldn't really, but that's for me a learning I have to have with respect. But for me, if Rich goes off to go meet someone and they're late, I get annoyed on his behalf that they might have left him waiting there, for example.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
Well, that just comes down to your boundaries. And then if that's related to your own self-respect, and then maybe you just have to walk away from more of those situations in order to not let it infect you, in a sense, you know what I mean? Because when you feel disrespected, but you stay in that situation, like a bad marriage, bad relationship, whatever it is, and you're continually disrespected, I mean, and it comes to that kind of idea of like what they call learned helplessness, where you've just almost resigned to this state of helplessness and allowing yourself to feel that way, then you are really kind of giving up all that self-respect. And that definitely creates a lot of anxiety, sadness, depression. So respect is another good one.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't choose, but now I love every value, so I would choose every value. But for me, it's like, okay, if I did the training session with Evaluate and I got my report, and one of the core values is respect, how can I practice this daily? You know, like through for my self-respect. How can I practice this in relationship, marriage, in my company? You know, like how can you give like some advice, like how we can practice this daily, monthly, weekly to feel better?
Probably some journaling. I don't know what Louisa thinks about that. I think journaling, I think gratitude journals are nice when you're writing journals at night of what you feel gracious for, or where your gratitude is. You would probably then be also examining where maybe you felt some disrespect, or maybe you disrespected someone else. It's just really about a little bit of mindfulness time to think about that. But I think that it's got to come down to like setting 5 minutes in the evening to write down some of the things that you feel grateful for, and some of the things that you felt maybe you didn't show up in a respectful way, or you weren't respected. I think it's just a matter of accountability. And I think the only way you can have accountability is to prioritize. So if you prioritize respect, then you need to think about it on a daily basis. If it's a value that resonates with you, and you're really, really finding yourself feeling very affected by disrespectful people, where you come into your place and you're like, just can't believe how rude a person is. I'm kind of like that sometimes in my building. I find it very strange if people just can't, like, there's this one young girl in our building, and I don't know her, I don't know who she is, but she's very pretty, but she walks like when she comes in, she leaves her car, she kind of just like tosses the keys at the valet. And when she comes into the elevator, she can like barely be bothered to lift up her head. And you feel disrespected. I don't even know her, but you just feel disrespected, even though I shouldn't be, because I have no personal relationships with her. But I think that if it is something that's important to you and you want to change it in that person, I think you kill them with kindness. Hello, good morning. Having a good day? I mean,
Yes.
see, you get from that kind of person. So I don't know that. Do you have any other bits of advice for how you reflect on respect?
I think it goes to what we've talked about a bit. So set your boundaries where you can. So when you are building a new relationship, or when you're in a relationship, albeit with someone you love, albeit with a work colleague, a friend, whatever it is, try and set a framework of what respect is between you and how that works. And as I said, and appreciate their side of that story too. So be honest, be transparent, but also understand that they have feelings, they have opinions, and if you agree or you don't, how can we work forward? So I think there's a lot of transparency that comes with it, but also then having some responsibility for your part of the deal. So it's not always pointing fingers, but actually, how can I take responsibility for my part in this two-way relationship, and how we're going to move forward, and within that boundary that we've created. And if that's more clear to that person, then I would say it's not, nothing could go wrong, but it will be much easier as you move forward.
Well, that's really about communication. It's, you know what I mean, with that kind of value. I think that especially in close relationships and people that hurt you the most are often the ones that are closest to you, that you need to communicate. Like, that's really disrespectful that you throw your towel like on my pillow every morning after you shower. It really bothers me. I mean, you know what I mean? Those are the little things that add up in people's lives, though.
I'll tell
And
you what, I went to an all-girls boarding school for kind of the teenage chunk of my life, and that's when you learn boundaries and you learn what some girls are okay with and what some girls are not. And we all knew, and we all therefore knew each other's trigger points and pressure points. And I have to say there was a lot of respect on the floor I lived on of what we knew, how to behave with each other as a result of, yes, you'd laugh about throwing a towel on the bed, but just know whose rooms you just go into without knocking, know whose rooms you don't, this kind of thing. And it can translate into life now for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and you can read it. I mean, you can, like, there's a lot of like cues, that nonverbal cues of respect as well. Like you should be able to read a room. I mean, you can't if it's going to some author talk, you know, and you're speaking so loudly and laughing with your friends when you're walking in, and it's kind of, you're heading into an environment where people are going to sit and settle down and be quiet. That's a level of respect as well. It's just being obnoxious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I would say as well, just remember that there's a vulnerability that comes with respect. Like we talked about the value of intimacy already. In fact, for me, as my opinion, to build some intimacy, I would have to have respect with the person that I'm doing that with. So be open to the fact that there is some vulnerability with setting those boundaries too. You have to share what those boundaries are to a certain
if you go right back to the start of the story of the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, I think that he was vulnerable. He, like, you know, he was, his authenticity was to wear his hair a certain way and to dress it this certain way, and it's artistic kind of flow that he had going. And I think that he was vulnerable to kind of fitting himself into a box that really didn't feel quite like him, even though he really did want to get some of these jobs. So I think once he got over that vulnerability fact and accepted that he wasn't losing all parts of his own authenticity, but he just needed to play the game then, and just need to get there, and then he could express more of his authenticity probably once he had the job. So it's interesting. It's basically trial and error, I think, as you grow when you're younger.
And my last question, if respect is like to admire somebody, can you tell me who you do admire the most? It can be a famous person, it can be someone from your family, it can be your neighbor. Can you think about that? I can start because it's my question, so I know the answer. The respect that I feel I'm the most, and what I learned, it's my mom. Really, she did an amazing job. 3 kids, you know, like we could make a mess of her life, but she was like always like, you should do this, you should do this, you need to be safe, you need to do this, you need to be respectful. Always on us. It was like, so for me, real example of respect and how I learned what is respect, it's from my mom. Do you have?
I mean, I think for most,
You go, Tia, you go.
No, I can't. I'm like, I mean, obviously I think that would be a good one for on a personal level. I'm trying to think of outside of like my family, who is
of course. You
someone
can use like a famous person, you love what they work, because we cannot do that, you know, like whatever example you have.
I guess, I mean, if I'm going to talk about a famous person, and I know he's a very controversial personality, but I think that a famous person that's shaped a lot of my thinking with my model has probably been Steve Jobs, because I think that he basically approached all of his dreams and his innovations and his creations from like his own rules, and taking that road less traveled, and not doing, like, dropping out of school because he didn't want to waste his parents' money, and getting fired from the company that he created, and I guess really everything that he does a lot of reflecting. I know that the movies don't make him seem like such a great guy all the time, or when they talk about his life, obviously what he's created is incredible, but I really think I respect that. He said one thing that I respect so much, and I've used a lot with my own girls, is that oftentimes in life we go through all these hardships and these sufferings, and some of the worst things in the world happen to us, and we don't understand why. But we can't connect the dots. He would say, until we look backwards. That's what I realized in my life. So I think that I have a lot of respect for his wisdom, his ability to be at the top, be brought down to the lowest of lows, and bring him back up to the top to be one of the most innovative, incredible inventors in the world. So I guess Steve Jobs for me.
That's a nice example, Tia.
Yeah. I guess I could say my parents, of course, but being a bit kind of outside of that for me is, on one hand, anyone who in history has really pushed boundaries or defended themselves, or whether it's to do with gender or race or anything like that, someone who's really stepped outside of a comfort zone in order to change the world. I have a huge amount of admiration and respect. And the other side is people in my life who give me that attention and almost time to grow and learn from them. So my old boss, I talked to Tia a lot about him, a lot of respect for him. I learn everything I know about this industry.
He loves you. He's a kind man. You know what I mean? It's like
He's a great individual.
Yeah.
So that would be someone I have a lot of respect for too.
Thank you so much for your example. Thank you for sharing the stories. Thank you for being my guest again. And see you in the, let's talk about next value and see you in the next episode.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, Loretta.
Bye.